Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9-to-5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.
Hey everyone, I'm Yvette Lloyd, host of Life Her Podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today, and she is an incredible award-winning real estate broker, trailblazer, and passionate advocate for home ownership accessibility. Candice has become the licensed realtor at just 20 years old and went and made history as the first African-American woman president of Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors. With over 2 decades in the industry, she has decided and dedicated her career to breaking barriers and helping others achieve their dream and home ownership. Join us as we dive into her journey and challenges that she overcame and impact that she continues to make in the real estate and beyond that. Hey, Candice, how are you?
Good. How are you, Yvette?
I am doing good, girl.
Thank you for having me. I am honored. It's been a long time in the making.
I know, it really has. But first, when we get started, I want to tell you thank you for helping me with the land that I wanted in the back of my home.
You're welcome. I forgot all about that.
I know, because it's been like 2 years, I believe, but I just signed the papers last week.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes, I was like, should I tell her now or should I just wait to the interview? So I'm like, I'm going to wait because I really wanted to tell you in person, just thank you. I'm really excited about the process and the things that I'm getting ready to do.
I'm excited for you. I had completely forgot about that. So that's good. Everything worked out.
Yes, everything worked out great. So I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So first and foremost, I know that you are a realtor, you have your own brokerage, you have so many things going on. But I want to start from the beginning. When did it all start? I know we were talking before and you were saying how you was going to school to be a pharmacist and you wanted to stay here with your mom, but everything has shifted and you were going to Florida.
Yes, I was. So that was the plan, to graduate from school and move to Florida. Actually, my grandfather, he had an Eberhardt Realty in Akron back in the 70s and 80s. And he had siblings that owned real estate companies in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. And so on my dad's side of the family, talk was always about real estate. So I got my license not too long after graduating high school, right after I turned 20. And it started out as just something part-time. And so I was going to Kent State, taking classes to become a pharmacist. And my mother was diagnosed with a very rare form of epilepsy. And so at the time, I've always had more than one hustle. So at the time I was working at K&P, which was a beauty supply store in Arlington Plaza. Was going to school during the day, working third shift at Walmart. And so I got a job at Roadway, which was a trucking company, third shift. And, still braided hair, hustled on the side or whatever. And I got my real estate license. So I worked from 11 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning. And I would get off work. When I decided to go to real estate school, I would get off work at 8 o'clock in the morning and be in class from 8:30 to 6 Saturdays and Sundays. So I did that for 2.5 months. And just focused full time on the real estate. Couldn't really go to school. Mom was sick, and just, did that part time until I figured out exactly what it was I wanted to do.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel like, as far as knowing that your career has shifted into one thing and then went over to another?
It really, wasn't that big of a deal because, my mother and I were very, very close, and whatever I needed to do to accommodate her, that's what needed to be done with no questions asked. So I was working third shift, was getting in trouble for falling asleep at night. Ooh. After doing that for almost 10 years, selling houses during the day. So they decided to put me on days, and being on days, I couldn't sell houses like I needed to. So it's like I had a choice. I could continue to stay there and allow my real estate business to fail, or I could leave and pursue it full time. And so that's what I did. I left, dug in full time, went back to school, finished the degree so that I could open my company. And that was scary because at the time you're leaving a paycheck every 2 weeks. In real estate, you only get paid when you sell houses. So it was like really a leap of faith that I was terrified to do. And by the grace of God, it worked out.
That is a blessing. You know, a lot of people don't understand like the way real estate works. And I'm glad that you explained that because, you know, a lot of times we see a lot of things that's just extremely successful when it comes to real estate, but it's really marketing and getting yourself out there, personality, and knowing how to communicate with people. And so much comes with it. What are some of the advice that you could give to people that's really stepping out into becoming a realtor and trying to sell and get everything out there, especially in today's economy?
It's not easy. Like I was saying, I started when I was 20 and I'll be 46 in a couple weeks. I will. So, you know, when I started, I was young and people would tell me right off the back, well, you kind of, you know, inexperienced and, you know, you kind of young. It's nothing against you. We just want somebody with more experience. So I ran into that a whole lot. And then you think you have this network that's going to support you right away as far as your family and friends, and they go elsewhere because it's unspoken, but they feel the same way that, you know, the general public feels about they want to work with somebody with experience, you know, and that's hurtful. And that's with anything, you know, when you're building a business, it's not easy.
No.
You know, it's like when I got licensed, it took me 9 months to sell my first house.
Man.
And then luckily I had the job third shift, and then it took me another 5 months before I sold my second. And so people come in and they're like, I want to do what you do, you know, can you show me? But you just have to stay with it. You can't take any breaks, you know, as far as building. You need to network. While building my career, I attended so many network functions, you know, everywhere. Every time there was an event, Candice Eberhardt was there, passing out business cards. For 1 minute on Facebook, my name was Candice, Let Me Sell You a House, Eberhardt.
Okay.
And it said that for about 5 or 6 years. And then I had built it enough to where I could remove that. And, you know, my clientele has built over the years to the point now where I rarely do any advertising as far as getting clients is concerned. But it's not easy, you know, it's hard. It's hard to build and maintain your reputation because Russ Neal, his father, he was the broker that was training me when I got my broker's license, and he died unexpectedly. But he always told me, he said, all you have is your reputation in this business and do everything to protect it. So because I had the time, you know, I mean, I've mentored at Bookdo, graduate of Leadership Akron, you know, housing chair of Akron NAACP, just so much I've poured myself into the community. And then people started reaching out like, can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm like, whoa, because I'm out there working, not realize that people are watching and paying attention to everything.
Yes.
They are. And so I was just astounded because I didn't, you know, realize that people thought that much of me to want me to sit on boards, to come to me for advice. I mean, there's a lot of high-level executives in Akron that have used me for their home purchases, and I'm just grateful because I never thought that it would take off in the capacity that it has. But it's a lot of work, and it's not overnight. Like I tell my agents that come in, well, it's funny because I attended a paint and sip about a month ago, and I sat next to this agent, and she said, nobody told me that I would be broke for the first 2 years.
Man.
Yes. And so it's something that you have to work at constantly. You can't take any breaks because when you take a break, you know, you put yourself back that much farther. So just get out everywhere you go. People need to know who you are, what you do. Pass out business cards. Never stop talking about it because you can spend thousands of dollars for advertising, and I have. But the business I've got has come from more or less repeat business people that I worked with and went above and beyond for 20 years ago, and they're sending their kids and they're sending grandkids, and their kids get married, they need a house. So it's based on repeat business for the most part.
Man, that is a blessing, especially when you know that, you literally started from the bottom.
Literally. From the bottom. I mean, because people look at me, they're like, oh, this and that. But I grew up in Goodyear Heights, but my mother worked 3 to 11. So we were, down on First Avenue with my grandmother most of the time. And so then my mother ran into a situation where we had to move in with my grandmother. So I lived on First Avenue, and I grew up in a single parent household. My dad and I, we had somewhat of a strained relationship, but when I turned 37, he and I, reconnected, and we have an amazing relationship. So it's not easy. It's not, I don't come from a background with a lot of wealth. I grew up basically just like everybody else. So yeah, I'm very grateful. Come from very humble beginnings.
And you still is humble.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Being the youngest minority real estate broker in Akron, what is the challenges did you face early on in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Ooh, that's a many-faceted question, because real estate in this area is not dominated by African Americans. It isn't. And so if you go on my Facebook page, there's an article that the Plain Dealer did on me a couple years ago during Women's History Month. It was in March. And I just talk about, the challenges I've overcome as a Black woman climbing the ladder in real estate. I mean, there have, just discrimination-wise, yes. And it's a lot. I've had mortgage companies, call and vet my clients.
Wow.
And that's not their job. If there's a pre-approval letter that says my client is qualified. I had one girl that I represented. She bought a $200,000 house in Copley. This was before the market was as high as it is now. And she was pre-approved, and she wrote a letter, hey, I'm a single mother. This is what I have going on. So the real estate agent called the loan officer, and I said, well, I see she's a single mother. Can she really afford this house?
Wow.
Yes. And so the loan officer was a friend of mine. And so I'm just being treated differently. Yeah. I've had agents who were just rude for no reason, right off the back. Not saying that necessarily that was race related, but a lot of the times it was. Mm-hmm. And so as I've climbed the ladder in real estate, it's like the same people, they have a different level of respect for you. Yeah. There was an agent years ago that I worked with, and he made me cry. He did. He made me cry. He was so rude and so nasty to me. And when I became president of the real estate board, he was one of the ones that reported directly to me.
Wow.
So
times change.
It's a lot. And so people can be rude. Sometimes I meet an agent and they're rude, and when they find out that I have depth in the industry, then it changes immediately. Mm-hmm. And so there's like some of my agents, they call, this agent was rude, and I'll reach out to the agent like, hey, this is one of my agents. They're new. So extend them some grace. Wow. Just because I know how rough it is, and I know how difficult people can be. Mm-hmm. And I know how rewarding, real estate can be. So it's discouraging for a lot of agents, but I try to keep them encouraged, mm-hmm. and that's daily. Yeah. That's daily.
So how do you stay encouraged, even just going through that experience mm-hmm. of maybe even racism or just people just being hateful? How do you still keep that smile on your face? How do you still have the lines of communication and the level of respect? Still, it's just so much when it comes to that, because you still have to maintain your professionalism.
You do. And I have to work with them again.
Yes.
So when people, are in that space, I don't take it personal, because it's not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of them and something that they've gone through, and I've had agents come back and apologize. I have. So, I'm not perfect. So it's been some times where I had to go in.
Yeah, of course. You're human.
But for the most part, I keep my composure. I try to be as professional as possible and keep moving. I have people looking at me, so I have to be very mindful of, just how just of my behavior out here in general.
Yes. It was something that rang to me when you said that you don't take things personal. And I feel like that is just so important when it comes to you running your own business. And even when you're thriving and going to the next level, you can't take things personal.
No, you can't.
And once you realize that, you will find yourself elevating even more, because a lot of people have personal issues and projections that they have upon themselves, and they put it on you when you're not their reflection. You're your own reflection.
Exactly.
And can you explain how important it is for you to not take things personal and for you to still just maintain who you are?
It is so important. When you're in real estate, a lot of times you're dealing with people who are in transition. They might be going through a divorce. I had one client that lost a child and, didn't want to be in the house anymore. There was this one girl that came to me, and I tell you, I had to pray to keep to keep my composure, because she told me off numerous occasions, would hang up on me, and it's just And so then people come back and, sometimes they apologize, sometimes they don't. But that's what I'm here for. I'm here to navigate these waters. And I think I do a pretty good job. I'm human,
Yes, yes.
But, I have to maintain, I probably wouldn't be as far as I am if I gave into those thoughts, as far as, well, let me tell.
Yes, because it'll break you if you let it.
It does. And, and I have bad days like everybody else. I do, I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but in 2022 and 23, my significant other, his 16-year-old son, who he had custody of since he was 2, he was diagnosed with cancer. And then he died on the 4th of July, 2023. And so I was mom. I was helping taking the chemo and this and that. And that period taught me a lot about myself, because people was crazy over here. And so I'm taking care of this child who's dying. And so I still had to keep my composure and be professional when I'm burying a child that I love. So it was just a reminder. You don't realize, how strong you are until you go through something like that, and it's like, wow. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I'm human just like everybody else. And I have to get up and show face and move forward despite when everything around me might be crumbling. So yeah.
So speaking of crumbling, us as business owners, we stay professional at all times in public places, social media, everything when it comes with it, but not knowing that we're going through things in our personal lives, just like the things that you just mentioned as far as your son. And I go through it too.
I know you have been through a lot, but look at you.
Yes.
Look at you.
Yes. I'm still pushing it, but on the downtime, I do have my breakdown moments.
Yes.
I do have my give up moments. And even just when it comes to shifting your business or losing your business, and you have staff that think so highly of you and see things in their own perspective, but they really don't know in depth of the things that you're going through, the things that you've been through, and the things that you're trying to get to. Right. Can you speak on the fact of how all of your staff left you when you were transitioning into something better so that it could help your business?
So that's a very emotional story because not that much time has gone since that happened. So I owned Eberhardt Realty Management. I'm still the owner for 13 years. And at the time I was the only African American broker in Akron, and I had 11 agents. And so by me being a small minority business, I didn't have the resources like Keller Williams, like Howard Hanna. And so a lot of agents, they would come to interview with me, but they wouldn't stay because I didn't have what the larger companies offered.
Okay.
And so no matter what I did to try to grow, it's just like I couldn't get past a certain point, you know. And so I had interviewed with several companies for many years, just trying to see what I can do to adapt to something bigger. And so I decided in July of 2024 to put Eberhardt Realty and Management to the side and move to EXP because they have their motto, the way it's set up, it's like I'm still my own broker. I can still have a team. I can still, you know, control several aspects of the growth of me and my team. And so there was like a couple that had decided to leave. But after I made the transition, half of my agents left.
Wow.
And that was extremely painful
I know it was.
Yeah, yes, it was because, you know, I've poured a lot into them. You know, we were all close like a family. And again, I had to remind myself that it wasn't, you know, personal. People have to do what's ultimately best for them. They do. And so that was painful, but growth is painful. It is. It's uncomfortable. It's not just easy and straightforward. You know, there's a lot of twists, turns, curves.
Yeah.
And so since that period of time, that was between July and September when everyone left. But since that time, I've acquired 7 new agents. And if I was still at Eberhardt, I would not have been able to attract that many in that short period of time. And they're still coming. They're still coming. So right now we're at 12, and there's more, you know, that I'm meeting with that are in the process or making the decision to come over.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is your vision? Like, what do you see? What direction or level are you trying to take it?
So at this point in my career, you know, things come in different periods of time. When I got my real estate license, my parents were 45. Now my parents are 70, you know. And so I look back and it's like, man, I have missed out on so much, you know, spending time with family, you know, spending time with my god kids, just because I've been working to build. So at this point, you know, I would like to spend more time with my parents, which I have been doing. I'm not running as much because EXP's resources, they allow me to, you know, delegate more. They handle a lot of the stuff, and I can spend more time training and developing, you know, agents and giving them the one-on-one that they need to grow their business, just to support overall. So that's where I am at this point.
Wow. That's a blessing. How does it feel that you made that decision? You know, it's a lot when you transition into something, when you hold on to your baby.
You're right.
know?
And it feels good. But just to be honest with you, 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about going back to Eberhardt.
Really?
I really was, because I tend to think about other people, and some of my older agents, they weren't exactly happy with, you know. And so I thought about going back, but it didn't feel good to me. You know what I'm saying? It didn't. And so it just comes a point where, you know, where you have to look things over and make the decision that's best for your growth. And so that's where I am now.
Man. So you're passionate about making homeownership
Yes.
accessible
Yes.
to people who never thought it was possible. What are some of the biggest misconceptions holding people back from owning a home?
There are so many. A lot of people, well, just to back it up a bit, there's what's called the Sheba Report. It's the state of housing in Black America. And every year they put out a sheet or a statistic, whatever you want to call it, and it lists how homeownership ranks for the different races. White is number 1, 74%. Right below them, you have Asian, which is like in the 50s, Hispanics in the higher 40s, African Americans, 42%. And so ever since I got licensed, it's been a goal of mine to try to change the number, for home ownership. And I meet people all the time who've never owned a home, their parents never owned a home, and they think it's unobtainable because they think you have to have all of this money.
Yeah.
They think you need a 700 credit score. And so just converting those statistics is something that I'm very passionate about. All you need is a 620 credit score. There are all types of programs that help you with down payment where you don't have to come out of the pocket. Yeah. And it's not that, they don't want to do it. It's just that they don't have the education to do so.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times over the years somebody came to me, they were looking at a property to rent, and they were converted to a homeowner just because we sat down and had the conversation. One girl, she had been on AMHA for many years, and there was a property that one of my investors had. This is when the market was down in 2008 and 2009. And so she came through, and I said, well, have you thought about buying a house? She said, no, I can't. My credit score is in the fives and, Section 8, this and that. And I said, why don't we pull your credit and see? So she went to the library and pulled her credit. It was like 715.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she ended up buying that house. She ended up buying it because she didn't know, She didn't come from a family where homeownership was a strong suit, just like me.
Yeah.
And so those stories are what, make it worthwhile. There's another lady, she purchased her home. She's a close family friend, and she had purchased her home. She was in her late 50s. And at the closing table, she just broke down and cried because, she didn't think it was possible. So when I have a situation like that, it lets me know that I am on the right path and I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do.
That is such a blessing. So what are some of the ways now, do you offer anything to help first-time home buyers currently?
Absolutely. So I meet a lot of people who say, I don't have the credit. I say, well, why don't we pull your credit so that, we can see where you stand. And if your score is too low, I can put you in a program, to help you get your credit score up. So EANDC, they have a homeownership program, and over the last 26 years, I know I've sent more than 100 people to them. And so they go through, they take the homeownership classes, and once they're credit ready, they send them back to me and I put them in a home. And that's been the process for more than 20 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
That is amazing. Just, a lot of people are just not knowledgeable about a lot of things. And I'm real big on educating people.
So am I. Educating the consumer, educating my agents. I wish I could just pour everything that's in my head into
yes.
But it doesn't work that way. And so, that's what I've dedicated myself to doing, is just educating and putting as many of us in homes as we can, because home ownership, that creates generational wealth for you and your family. It does. When you see these athletes and their net worth is 150, 200,000, they have a lot of money, but a lot of that is real estate investments.
Yes.
It is. Even if it's just a little something of a property, get it, fix it up. You can rent it out, make money off of it. You can pass it down to your kids, which is what other races do. When these kids are 25, they're handed a trust fund and a house that's paid for, and they can live there and not have to pay rent, or they can sell it to put towards the next one. And so I just believe in, trying to create that type of legacy, just across the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a blessing.
Thank you.
So what are some of the things that you do in your personal life to build generational wealth when it comes to real estate?
So I've sold several properties over the years. I've invested in real estate. I own property now in Goodyear Heights. I was thinking about selling my duplex, because I liquidated all the homes, and right now I own a duplex. I was thinking about selling it, but I don't think I'm going to. When I first got into real estate, I did not own anything, and one of my investors told me, you can't be out here and not own nothing.
See?
And so
that's why I asked.
And so in 2009, I bought my first property, the duplex in Goodyear Heights. And, even before then, I had bought my first property. It was on Mallison. It was just a rental, and bought and sold several. And then I bought the duplex, and I moved out of my apartment and moved in there, lived in one side and rented out the other. So that took care of the mortgage. Yeah. So I took in a child, and there wasn't enough room there. So I bought the condo where I live now. That was in 2010. And so the duplex, the rental income from the duplex, is part of my monthly income in addition to some other type of investments. But yeah, so I don't want to be the person that just talks about it. I want to be the person that has taken the path and speaking from experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I find that so important. That's why I asked you that, because
that was a good question.
Seriously, because some people, we be in something and we have all the tools, all the knowledge and everything, and we just be like sitting on wealth, and we just be like, whatever.
That was a good question. It was.
Seriously.
That was a good question.
Because it's important. I've learned that even from, losing my mom and stuff. And then when I'm saying, like, I study all the time. Like, I am a nerd.
So
when
do
it comes
I.
to me
All over
being
the United
knowledgeable.
States, taking classes.
Yes.
Continuing education. Whatever I have to do to stay on top of things. You have to stay on top of the education.
You have to.
You do.
And one of the biggest things every time I come across is real estate. Is when it comes to real estate and owning land. So that's what made me reach out to you. And I'm like, land. I'm like, I'm about to get this. I was like, I'm about to get it. I don't care.
It's important.
How long it takes.
It is.
Yes. And it's so important. And it was a blessing. My mom left me and my brother a home.
Wow.
And she made nothing. She was making only $15 an hour.
Exactly.
She made absolutely nothing, but she had the credit.
And you see how she left that to you.
Yes.
We don't run across that often in our community. We don't. And you've probably seen the ads where it says, "Don't sell grandma's house."
Yes,
have you ever seen that?
Yes.
But that's why, because even if it's a rundown property, you might not have the money to fix it up. You can fix it up just a little bit at a time if it takes years, but it's yours.
Yes.
And it's something that can be passed down that can create income, for you or for your kids or, just for whoever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell me, how is everything going now since you have converted over into ESP and you have, I seen the one picture that you had with all the women and everything, everyone sitting at the table, just having lunch, just meeting up. And it was a powerful picture if people actually see beyond that. But it's even more powerful hearing your testimony and the things that you've been through to even get in that position. So
thank you.
How do you feel now?
I feel good about it. I do. Actually, that picture, most of the agents there were mine, but I had invited some of my old agents to come. Yeah, because, and one said, I'm really glad that you did that. Because once I, came to and realized they didn't do it to spite you. They did it because it was best for them. And you bring everybody together to let them know, hey, I still want you to do well. I'm still a resource. Whether you're with another company or not, call me if I can help you out. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm here, to provide this information. So, so that made me feel good. Everything's good. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. But for the most part, I can see the big picture, and it's a good picture. It's a good picture.
Yes, it was really good. So how does it feel as far as being history of the first African American woman president of ACAR, and what does that accomplishment mean to you?
I had years ago, the Akron Association of Realtors and the Cleveland Board, they were separate entities, but they merged in 2013. And I was all for the merge because there's powers in numbers. You've got two powerful organizations. So let's bring this together. And in 2016, I was tapped on the shoulder for Tomorrow's Leader Today. And what that is, that's a program where they identify certain characteristics in real estate within people that they feel, could be bigger. So they provide you training and put you on track to accomplish big things. And so I was tapped on the shoulder for that. And I'm like, wow, so I'm like, well, it's funny because like I said, people are paying attention because at that time they saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself, And so that just started the journey. In 2018, in 2017, I had ran for the board of directors for Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors, ACAR, and I didn't make it. And I was discouraged, so I ran again for 2018, and I made it. And I was the only minority in the boardroom.
Wow.
Right. And so now you look, there's a handful. We have Hispanic, we have LGBTQ, we have African Americans, we have a lady from England. Yeah, so it's more diverse. And just to see, a lot of people say, and my mother tells me all the time, you don't give yourself enough credit, But
it's natural.
But it is. It is, because I'm not just going to walk around and be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? But, it makes me proud, that I had people who necessarily did not look like me, that saw something that I didn't. And, you take that courage and that faith that they have in you to grow something bigger. I mean, it feels good.
I bet it
does.
Yes.
It feels good.
So one of the things that I love for my guests to explain to people is how much has God did for them in their lives, in their personal journey and business journey. Could you explain how much God has done for you?
I am a person of faith, and I'm glad you asked that because I don't get to talk about my faith. And because you don't want to offend people, you don't know if they have a different belief in yours. But everything that I have is by the grace of God. And every morning when I step out of bed, when my 2 feet hit the floor, I say thank you. I learned that from The Secret.
Yes.
I do, but I'm such an appreciative person to the point where even when I pull up at the grocery store, when I get a close parking spot, I'm like, thank you, God, for giving me that great parking spot. And it's something small, but I know I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for my faith. And I grew up that way. My grandmother was a prayer warrior. My mother is a prayer warrior. And my mother, she made me and my brother, I don't know if you know who Andre Long is. That's my brother.
Yes.
But my mother had never been on a plane before 2008. And that's the story there. I had a cousin that got married in LA. And my mother's like, I'm not going, I'm taking the bus. And I'm like, well, you take the bus. I said, it'll be over when you get there.
3 days.
So she flew. But she just instilled in me and my brother that we could accomplish anything. And I give a lot of that credit to her. I had a praying grandmother, and so I know that having faith and being a believer is probably the main key to how I got where I am.
Yes.
So yeah, it's important. I didn't make it to church today because I had a long week and was tired, but I thank God every chance I get. I do.
Yes. And I'll be trying to explain that to people so much because nothing is luck.
No, it isn't.
At all. It's just the different stepping stones and the different things that God send us through for us to be able to elevate and become the better version of ourselves. But it's just the fact of us being realistic about ourselves, loving ourselves enough, and continuing to have that faith is so important because I believe by now we would have lost our mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
And it doesn't when you believe in God, it doesn't disqualify you from difficult times, but He gives you the wings to coast right on through.
Yes.
And so I tell people all the time. I was just having a conversation with somebody. Yeah, it's rough now, but it's temporary. You're going to be on the other side. And it's all a matter of faith. It is.
It is.
It's all a matter of faith.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm so glad you asked about that. I don't get to talk about that
Yes.
too often.
Yeah, it's needed a
It
lot.
is.
Because a lot of people, they lost the touch of it.
Right.
You know, they lost the faith when it comes
They
to
have.
it.
They have.
And a lot of times when we bring it up and people make it feel like they're so uncomfortable to talk about them. And I just want people to actually feel comfortable
Right.
and actually let people know, like, look, I didn't make it here on my own.
Absolutely not.
God has gotten me through so much.
Yes.
And we still go through things, even though we look accomplished and we accomplished that mission.
Right.
But we still go through different things at different levels when it comes to us elevating ourselves and wanting better for ourselves.
Absolutely. We can't do anything without
No,
him. We can't.
we can't. It's impossible.
It is.
It definitely is. So how can people get in contact with you or connect with you to help them purchase a home or even become a realtor and join your team?
So I am easily accessible. You can reach me directly. My cell phone number is 330-608-1776. Facebook, I have a lot of people that I never met or, reaching out on Facebook and Messenger. I actually wanted to deactivate my page because it's a major distraction. Like if I'm sitting at my computer typing a contract, it might take me a little bit longer because I'm on Facebook. But I get so much business off of there. I have agents reaching out. I have clients reaching out. I'm easily accessible. I am. If they want to sit down and have a conversation, I just want people to experience what I have, and whatever I can do to help them get there. Whether they're an agent outside of my team or not, it's just a quick phone call. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
That is amazing. Well, what is something that you want to leave here today as far as a positive message for our listeners?
If there's something I'd like to leave with you guys, in regards to getting involved in real estate or just through life general, be patient with yourself. Extend yourself grace, because a lot of times we're so hard on ourselves and we, don't give ourselves credit for the small things that we do. So just have faith in God and give yourself credit.
Yes. So make sure you give yourself credit.
I know. I'm working on it.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to Life Hurt Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and also listen to us on audio on all major platforms. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.